write down the next this thing like 40A 1A, 40A 1A, no deduction shall be allowed in respect of expenditure like interest, commission, brokerage, professional fees, if the tax is not deducted, as per the law. In case if the tax is deducted, in the subsequent previous year, then the expenditure shall be allowed. In the subsequent previous year, of the deduction. Now the amendment brought by the Finance Act of 2012 is for the purpose of allowing the deduction of such sum, it shall be deemed that, here deeming provision I am using, it shall be deemed that the SSE has deducted and paid. It shall be deemed that the SSE has deducted and paid the tax on such sum, on the date of return filed by the resident payee. See, the point of interest here is like that fellow has to file his return of income under section 139(1). The question of whether it is to be allowed as the expenditure of the year of incurring or it should be allowed as a expenditure of the subsequent year. How to decide it? Is as long as the payee files the return of income before our due date for filing the return, SC's due date for filing the return, then the SC is allowed to take the expenditure deducted in the same financial year in which it is accrued. But if that fellow fails to file the return before the due date for filing the return of the SSE, then in the subsequent year it will be allowed as a deduction. This is the point which I want to illustrate through this particular example. See, there is an example. Of course, before that, please look at, there is a table here, particulars of the deduction of the tax, particulars of the payment of the TDS, year in which the expenditure is deductible. We have to go with this clarity to the exam, because this is bound to come. See, in any month of the previous year, let us suppose tax is to be deducted. Then particulars of the payment of the TDS on or before the due date for filing of the return of income specified under section 139(1). Normally, what is the principle? Even if you don't deduct and pay the tax within the due date, as long as you are deducting it and paying it before the due date for filing the return under section 139(1), it shall be allowed is a point. So, year in which the expenditure is deductible, expenditure shall be allowed as deduction in the previous year in which the liability to pay such sum is incurred is a point. So, this has got nothing to do with the payee's payment or filing the return. Normal provision, which all of us know, that there is no permanent disallowance. That is, if there is a failure to deduct the tax at source, then next year, in case if you deduct the tax at source and make the payment and everything gets completed before the due date for filing the return, then it will be allowed in the year to which it is related. In case if you are paying the taxes after your due date for filing the return, this expenditure gets disallowed in this year and it will be allowed in the next financial year is a point. So, whereas in the second case, in any month of the previous year, after the due date for filing the return, in case if you are making the payment of the TDS, then it will be allowed, such a expenditure will be allowed as a expenditure of the year in which the payment happens. So, there is a good permission to make the failure, but that can be ratified and rectified in case if you are paying the taxes before the due date for filing the return. But if it is done after the due date for filing the return, then also you be happy, it will be disallowed this year, it will be allowed in the next year in which you actually made the payment. So, it all gets decided based on the payment of the TDS. When it is actually need to be paid, you are not paying. Next year you are paying. Next year if you pay before the due date for filing the return, then it will be allowed in the year to which that expenditure relates. And in case if you are paying the TDS after the due date, then in the next year. For that, this illustration. First case to case we will discuss. Let us suppose the date on which TDS should have been deducted is 26/6/2012. All of you know that after deducting the tax at source, in the month in which you deducted the tax at source, within 7 days you have to make the payment of the TDS. So, actual date of deduction is what? 26/6/2012. When you have to file, when you have to pay the TDS to the government? By 7/7/2012. Within 1 month only, within 7 days only you have to make the payment from the end of the month. That is, your June month gets ended on which date? 30th June. 7 days means 7th July you have to pay. But actually when you paid it on 17/7/2012, no problem. Means just 10 days delay you have paid. So it will be allowed as a expenditure for 2012 and 13 only. Now second case, 26/7/2012 you have to pay. Date on which TDS should have been deducted, but actually when you have deducted on the last day of the financial year, 31/3. There are some people, throughout the year they will keep quiet. On 31/3 they will pass a journal entry. Right? 31/3 में आप डिडक्शन कर दिए, तो कब तक पेमेंट करना पड़ता? See, actually when you deducted is not the point. When it is ought to be deducted, it ought to be deducted on 26/7 and June month gets ended by 30th June. Within 7 days means your July month on 31st July, and within 7 days means by 7th August you should have paid the same. But you have deducted when? 31/3/2013 you have deducted. When you have paid on 2/4/2013, still you be happy because no disallowance, because it is being paid before the due date for filing the return. What is the due date for filing the return? 31st July in case of other than company SSEs and those who are not subjected to what is it tax audit and all, 31st July. Company SSEs and those who are exposed to the tax audit and all, 30th September, and those who have got international transactions till 30th November. So since it is being paid before the due date for furnishing the return, we still allow that particular expenditure even when there is some contravention with respect to the following that particular provision. Then the third case, a TDS is ought to be deducted on 31/3/2013. See friends, normally every month TDS what you have deducted, within 7 days from the end of the month you have to pay. But 31st March month TDS, a time gap of 1 month is given. Till 30th April you can, what is it, remit the same. But what you have done, happy well, cool well, you have gone and paid it on 31st July. Still we love, because you have paid it before the due date, we will allow it as an expenditure on for 2012 and 13 only. Then on 1/3/2013 you are supposed to deduct the tax. Actual date also you have deducted on 1/3/2013 only. Since it is a third month related deduction, that is March month related deduction, you are allowed to pay till 30th/4/2013, whereas you have cool well gone and paid it on 30th/6/2013. No problem, because you are still given a permission to pay it till the due date for filing the return, so it will be allowed as a deduction for 2012 and 13 only. In the next case, 16/5/2012 you are supposed to deduct it. You have also deducted on 16/5. For the 5th month, 31st May, you have to pay by 7th of the June, whereas you have not at all deposited. You are not deposited means that expenditure gets disallowed. Last case is what? On 10/6/2012 you are supposed to deduct. You have deducted on 20th/4/2013. So ये साल में जो करना वो तुम नहीं करे, next साल 2013 and 14, 20th/4/2013 you have deducted, whereas the time limit for making the payment is what? When it is ought to be deducted 10/6/2012, 6th month 30th में end होता, 7th of 2012 तक actually as per 201 you have to make the payment, whereas when you have paid 20th/7/2015 means after 2 years. 20th/7/2015 comes in which financial year? 15 and 16 financial year, for which the assessment year is when? Assessment year is 16 and 17. So previous year in which that expenditure will be allowed is 2015 and 16. So TDS non-compliance will temporarily trouble you by getting disallowed. But if you subsequently make the payment, then it will be allowed as a deduction in that particular financial year is a point. But fortunately, if you can make the payment before the due date for filing the return, that expenditure will not get disallowed, it will be allowed as a deduction in the same financial year. This is one important thing, since an amendment is being brought in that particular area. Please, for final they combined 40A1(2) and 201(1) and 201(1)A. What is the complication as you go to the final level examination? At the inter-level examination they will ask only one section, at the final level they club the 3 sections. So you have to be double careful with those sections which have got the connecting link. So you are coming and sitting in the class only to learn which sections have got connecting link, how the questions can be framed. Right. Now I quickly go to the presumptive taxation 44AD. Friends, try to understand. 44AD is introduced with good intention. What is the good intention, doston? That we want to not to harass the small people. Till today, even the professionals are considered to be small people, right? So if they have got some business, retail business, then their receipts are not exceeding 60 lakhs, then they can come to the presumptive income scheme, right? There is a doctor. He has got professional receipts as well as business receipts. He is into the trading business and he has got a professional receipts also. Till yesterday, the situation is what? That doctor can go for the presumptive income scheme. But somehow, lawmaker is angry now. He says 44AD is not applicable to those SSEs who happens to be professionals. Which professions? Professions being carried under 44, they are covered by 44AA. Similarly, if that person is earning any commission or brokerage income, no presumptive 44AD. Similarly, if that person is carrying on agency business, no presumptive. He will not be covered by presumptive income scheme. See, if he is not covered by presumptive income scheme, का मतलब क्या होता? He has to maintain his books of accounts. He has to normally prepare his profit and loss and should tell what is the correct profit. Presumptive income mein, what is the benefit? You need not maintain your books of accounts. On gross receipts, if you offer 8%, that is enough. Of course, 44AB tax audit requirement mein threshold limit is being extended from 60 lakhs to 1 crore. Even for 44AD also, for presumptive income scheme also, the threshold limit is increased from 60 lakhs to 1 crore. I have not put it in the PowerPoint, but please remember that presumptive income scheme 44AD also, gross receipts is being extended from 60 lakhs to 1 crore. One interesting thing and important thing is, those SSEs to whom the presumptive income scheme of 44AD is applicable, advance tax provisions are not applicable. That is something which you please keep it in mind. So, only thing is, this particular Finance Act of 2012 now taken away the professionals who are being covered by 44AA, persons earning commission and brokerage income, and person carrying on the agency business out of the presumptive income scheme of 44AD. Please make note. Definitely these type of things are bound to come, because the testing of the paper setter is whether the student keenly observed what it is. So try to take it. 44AD presumptive taxation, it is not applicable to person carrying on profession as per 44AA. Number 2, person earning commission or brokerage income. Third is person carrying on agency business. A small note, even under 44AD, threshold limit of turnover is increased from 60 lakhs to 1 crore. Then friends, 44AD. I am coming to the 44AD. What is 44AB? What is 44AB? Tax audit. What is 44AB? It is a tax audit. So, what is the tax audit? See, at least for the inter students, please expect, since there is an amendment, they will be asking you to write completely about tax audit as per 44AD. Then it will not stop here. You should also write the remaining things also. Anyhow, my profits and gains from business and profession regular video contains the remaining discussion. I am not troubling people who are coming for amendments lecture only by telling what is all 44AB. But to tell you about 44AB, in short, this is something, a professional opportunity to the chartered accountants and a lesser administrative burden for the department, because department cannot go through each and every return and make a scrutiny of each and every return. So those who have got a business income and whose turnover is exceeding the threshold limits need to go to a chartered accountant and get his accounts audited, and a tax audit report they have to have in their file, and they have to write in the return who is the auditor who has done the tax audit and what is the date, his membership number, all that you have to. And failure to get your accounts audited when you are supposed to get that will liable for a penalty. Who will appoint the auditor? SC himself will appoint the tax auditor. Now coming to the point, here the amendment is only if you are a person carrying on the business and subjected to the tax audit, then the threshold limit there is you are going to get exposed to the tax audit if your turnover or gross receipts exceeds 1 crore, whereas if you are a professional, in case if your receipts are exceeding 25 lakhs, earlier it used to be how much? 15 lakhs, now it has gone to 25 lakhs, 150%. 60 lakhs into 150%, 60 to 1 crore it has gone, and 15 to 25 it has gone. Now, so to that extent you please write section 44AB, threshold limit got increased from 60 lakhs to 1 crore, and in case of professionals, threshold limit of gross receipts increased from 15 lakhs to 25 lakhs, increased from 15 lakhs to 25 lakhs. Right friends? Then of course, this is something which I already covered in the rates of tax, tonnage income, that is a daily tonnage income of the shipping company is calculated on a presumptive basis. What is it? Most important is daily tonnage income is of the shipping company is calculated on a presumptive basis, and how to calculate already you made the note of it. This is also being discussed below the presumptive income, but this is applicable for SCs, that is shipping companies. Then of course friends, we have got transfer pricing provisions applicable to the domestic transactions, which I will cover in the next session to follow. Right? Thank you for the patient listening. ఏమా ఎంతైంది? చాలా సేపు విన్నారమ్మా, ఈవెన్ హాఫ్ అన్ అవర్